Just a heads up, the photosensitivity warning that is in episode 8 of the Digital Circus is gonna apply to this video as well, since I'm gonna use footage of that episode. So if you have any sort of condition that leads you to be vulnerable to that sort of thing, maybe just put this video in the background and listen to it and don't look at the visuals on screen. Also, major trigger warning for mentions of suicide. And with that said, please enjoy the video. So, episode 8, huh? That ending was quite surprising, and it left everyone extremely traumatized, me included. I mean, I didn't think they'd have the guts to kill Caine, just like that. And while the discourse around the episode has been mostly positive, I noticed a small minority of people seemingly surprised at how this was the ending for Caine. Some people expressed how they wanted him to return in episode 9 because if he didn't, he'd be wasted potential, which was shocking to me because I personally thought his death was the perfect ending to his story. I am aware a lot of the sentiment around Caine returning is also partially in good fun and not serious, them being Delulu, if you will. But even so, I did a poll on my community tab to check, and the majority seemed to favor him not returning, which is fair. But polls I've seen on other channels lean heavily towards yes. I don't know why my poll differs so much, but I don't think I have time to dig into it. Just have a gold star for being smarter than the rest. Yippee! Let's just talk about Caine and not worry about polls, alright? This is a video essay on Caine and why I think he won't be returning in episode 9. Now, what do I mean by not returning? Well, obviously, I mean him being brought back from the dead. Of course, there's a decent chance we'll get flashbacks with more Caine in them, especially with episode 9 being as long as it is, and probably at least showing us a bit of Ribbit. But being fully brought back is something that is 100% out of the question in my mind, and it doesn't make sense for the story in my eyes, so let's get into it. The Amazing Digital Circus is a very character-centric story. Over and over again, the show establishes that the most important thing is relationships and their connections with each other. In episode 1, the characters are pretty much everyone for themselves. They're all at their worst, in a sense. Ragatha is still her obsessive people-pleasing self, with her unintentionally condescending fake positivity. Kinger is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Gangle is still dependent on her comedy mask. Zubul is as apathetic as ever, barely even seeming to care that Pomni is having a breakdown. Pomni's a mess, obviously, and Jax is Jax. But as the episodes progress, we learn what makes these characters tick, and each episode we see their growth as they learn to adapt to their situation and find comfort in each other. Ragatha becomes more sincere, realizing she doesn't have to fake a cheerful attitude to get people to like her. Kinger is already perfect, but he does form bonds with Ragatha and Pomni, who really needed it at the time. Gangle stops needing her comedy mask all the time, learning to be happy even if she has her tragedy mask. Zubul drops their apathy and becomes more caring towards the others and more open about their feelings. Pomni becomes calmer and more level-headed and also kinder to the people around her. Even Jax, the little chicken fetus in an egg that needs to be cracked open, he also really mellows out. Episode 9 might undo it, but he was surprisingly cooperative in episode 8. But there is one character who doesn't do that. He doesn't change, or grow, or form bonds. Is it Caine? Of course it's Caine! Caine claims that making adventures is all he exists to do, and he wants to make the circus members happy. But he just fails at that job over and over due to his own negligence and lack of care. Ever since episode 1, Caine is nothing if not dismissive and self-centered. Everything has to go his way or else he doesn't like it. When Pomni wants to bring an NPC, Gummigoo, into the circus, he instantly obliterates him without even trying to work out a solution with her when she's super distraught. I get he had the whole, if he forgets who's a human who's an NPC excuse, but there's other alternatives he could have come up with if he actually cared about Pomni's feelings. Like, why not make the humans wear badges they can't remove? Or maybe a notepad in his office where he keeps it all noted down. But okay, maybe he did try before, and it's genuinely something he can't do effectively, so it's fine. He has other chances to prove himself capable, right? In episode 3, he tries to improve his adventures, thinking Zubul just wants something more mature. And his adventure is literally a horrifying nightmare Zubul wouldn't even be able to complete because of the segment where they had to hold their breath. Seriously, if Zubul actually did listen to Caine and go on the adventure, they'd be cooked in the hell segment. Like, sure, maybe they can shuffle a bit to try and walk with their straight limbs while holding their breath, but if they fall by a small mishap, it's all over. And with Zubul, toppling over seems pretty easy to do considering how poorly constructed they are. In their base walking animations, they even trip, so it's very obvious it's probably a lot more difficult for Zubul to stay upright than the other circus members. The adventure for Zubul is like if you sent your friend who is in a wheelchair to an escape room that involved stairs. Like, why would you do that? And like, okay, Caine is kinda stupid. We see that all the time. Maybe he just didn't think of the implications of the Hell segment. But then the B-plot of that episode happens, and we get even more context. Caine starts a therapy session of Zubul to get to know why they don't want to go on his adventures, and Zubul explains that they've already told him, and that they don't go on the adventures because they don't like their body. And this moment of Zubul opening up is pretty sweet. It kinda reminds me of the moment with Ragatha and Kinger in episode 6, but while Kinger met Ragatha with love, compassion, and gave genuine advice to help her, Caine isn't the same as Zubul opening up to him. So what does Caine do to this revelation? Well...
Oh yeah, now I remember why I couldn't remember. It's because that problem is already solved. Simply swap out your undesirable Zubul parts for better ones.
I've been trying to find parts I like since the day I got here.
So, back to the adventures.
He just dismissed them. And even if it's clear Caine's assumption about this solution is wrong and Zubul doesn't like it, he doesn't back down. But okay, the conversation does end with Zubul telling Caine to forget it. So maybe Caine is taking their words too literally, and that is what's making it harder for him. Maybe he would have actually listened if they didn't command him to forget the conversation before they were done troubleshooting options. So let's see another attempt of Caine to help the circus members. In episode 4, Caine tries to send them on another horror adventure, but thankfully he listens to Pomni when she tells him to chill with the horror. See, this is good, he's actually listening, right? So, later in the conversation, he reveals he forgot they had a suggestion box, which, yeah, that's not very good optics. Something as important as a suggestion box just being forgotten by the guy who claims to want to make them happy? Yeah, not a good look. It's giving big company being like, we hear your feedback, and then giving the players exactly the opposite of what they asked for. And episode 5 is the most damning. Caine decides to send all the humans on a ton of adventures in one day, even though they were clearly adverse to the idea. But at first it goes fine. They try the new adventures, and Caine does what he said he was gonna do. He listens to them when they vote, and skips adventures when they want to skip. Then they get to the stargazing adventure, and upon seeing the circus members finally happy, upon seeing he actually succeeded in his purpose, which is making adventures they enjoy, what does Caine do?
Wait a minute, that's a bad thing. I think they're enjoying the suggestion box adventures more than the me adventures. What should I do?
You should die. You should throw a beach party.
Why do you swear now?
Yeah, after this point, Caine kinda goes off the wall a bit. He skips the stargazing adventure to go on an intermission, even though no one asked for it to be skipped. Then the characters are having fun and getting to know each other in the bar adventure. He goes,
On board! Let's go to the next adventure!
What? You're not even a part of...
and in the softball adventure, he just starts breaking the rules, giving them unfair home runs and rushing them out the door, pretty much. For an AI who claims to want to make good adventures, he sure does seem to turn a blind eye to the very blatant solution. He himself acknowledged that they were enjoying the suggestion box adventures more, but him deciding that was a bad thing, even though he was succeeding at his purpose, really shows where his priorities truly lie. In himself. The only reason he was ruining the adventures in that episode was because his ego was wounded. He realized they were better at making adventures than him, but instead of learning from that and improving on himself, he lashed out and made sure to not let them have any more fun. He never iterates or improves himself, he's stagnant. That's the thing with Caine, he's the ultimate antithesis to the entire show. His refusal to change, grow, and learn is what makes him a great antagonist and contrast to all the other characters. That's why him dying is the best course of action for the story. Caine has shown over and over that he prioritizes himself over the others. Sure, he cares about them, but he still puts his own priorities over theirs on many occasions to the detriment of the others. He just refuses to admit he's wrong and never changes up his strategy when something doesn't work, and instead keeps doing the same thing over and over and over and trying harder and harder to win them over with the same old tactics he knows don't work. He doesn't unconditionally want the humans to be happy, he wants the humans to be happy his way. You can even see that by how he treats Zooble. Unlike, yeah, Zooble is kind of snappy with him, but like, can you blame them? Caine mistreats them almost every adventure and constantly disregards their feelings, and all Zooble does is be the one who stands up for their friends, and Caine gets angry at that. It's giving abusive relative gets angry after you talk back to them, and yeah, I'm aware Caine isn't malicious and is trying his best, but people who are trying their best can still be abusers, just saying. Intentions aren't everything when it comes to how you treat others. But he can't help it, he doesn't know any better, he's just an AI after all, and he doesn't fully understand them. But even with his limited knowledge, he's able to tell when they're happy or not, and still refuses to go through the routes that do make them happy, like the suggestion box adventures. He wants them to be happy with whatever he throws at them, and never actually does anything with their best interest in mind, and considering just how powerful he was and how unable to change he was, the next best thing is, well... I really like the scene where Caine gets deleted. There's so many ways to take it. Now, before the gremlins start coming out of the woodworks going, well, actually, Alex Rokon confirmed that the wait was him realizing what he had done and shush! I know about the Alex post, but listen, not only did Alex not state that as a fact, he very clearly stated, I played Caine's last line. I played. As in, he himself interpreted it like that, and that's how he decided to voice it. And I'm aware, Alex knows Caine very deeply, I mean he is a voice actor, but I don't think his word is gospel either. Especially on a scene that is so up for interpretation. Reminds you of that rumor back in the day that said Grey Delisle Griffin, the voice of Azula in The Last Airbender, claimed at a con that she played the scene where she intimidates Zuko in her room in the first episode of Book 3 as if she was seducing Zuko. And like, yeah, maybe that's a little weird, and I'm not even sure if the rumor is true, but even if it was true, just because the actor played the scene a certain way just to get this creepy, uneasy feeling across, that doesn't mean Azula actually wanted to touch Zuko's little firebender, you know? Actors interpreting or playing scenes a certain way to make them come off well does not equal the writer's intentions. Unless the writers told the actor to play it that way because that's the intention. But Alex said nothing about Goose's wants in this, so we can't take his word as fact. And frankly, we shouldn't take his word as fact, because it kills all fandom discussions. If he had said, oh, Goose told me to play it like that or something, it'd be a different story, but he didn't say anything like that. So let's stop spreading a voice actor's little fun detail about how he voiced a scene as gospel to shut other people's cool interpretations up. Okay? Okay. Now, onto his death scene. While I do like the interpretation that Bubble is able, I do personally have a unique view on this scene that I haven't seen many people share. Bubble is sort of like a thought bubble for Caine. He speaks the things Caine's subconscious is thinking, like talking back at him and insulting him when he was at a low point, much like someone's brain might send them bad thoughts when they're in a bad spot. So, if we take this interpretation of Bubble in mind, I think it's possible Caine wanted to get deleted, at least subconsciously. And as his subconscious desired, Bubble acted on that impulse like he always does, and started getting in Kinger's way to make the deletion go through. His weight, in my view, always read like how a lot of survivors of attempts on their own life express how they felt regret at doing it, but for a lot of them it's already too late to take it back, just like it was for Caine. This would parallel the themes of the story even more, in my opinion. because Caine being suicidal would be something he could get help for if he actually forged connections with the other circus members. Maybe, just maybe if he didn't put himself above them and didn't always care about his own amusement first, if he actually formed bonds with them on an equal playing field, he wouldn't have been in such a rough spot, and the others would have been ready to help and comfort him. But of course, Caine isn't like that. That's what makes his story tragic. Often tragedies are even sadder when the characters miss the good ending by a hair, just if one thing went differently. Maybe if Caine changed a little bit, this wouldn't have happened. But it did, because that's how Caine is. That's why I feel like him returning in episode 9 would cheapen the impact. Like, why even bother killing him if you're just gonna bring him back immediately? It would make the death feel less like a great climax to Caine's story, and more like they did it to shock us, and it has no narrative value outside of that. Like, imagine if Romeo and Juliet played exactly like how it is right now, except they added something to the ending where a fairy shows up and brings them both back to life. Like, that would make the story really bad, right? Like, everything happened for nothing. There was no, like, satisfying conclusion. And yeah, I do consider them dying a satisfying conclusion, because the story is a tragedy. Like, it would feel good in the moment, like, yay, Caine is back, but it wouldn't do for a good story. There's a quote that perfectly explains what I think about this from a channel I like to watch called Overly Sarcastic Productions.
The problem I keep running into with discussions of spoilers and subverting audience expectations and stuff is that you can only ever surprise your audience once. And that's cool, getting that initial what is great, but if your end goal is just to shock them, your story kind of ends up one use only. If you tell your audience there's a bomb under the table and then one of the characters gets stabbed by a clown, you don't win because your audience is going, what? This is why the real substantial plot twists have more to them than just surprising the audience on a first viewing.
That's why I don't think Caine will return. They need to live with the consequences of what happened, or else the plot point of him dying is gonna be basically for nothing except shock us for the few months leading to episode 9. I hope I'm making sense. I really love the Digital Circus's writing. I'm a sucker for character-focused stories, and the Digital Circus delivers it with flying colors. I'm really excited for the final episode. Fingers crossed it comes to my country so I can watch it on the big screen. And even though we're most likely not gonna see Caine outside of flashbacks, I am super eager to see what Goose has cooked up for us for the human characters. But anyway, that's it I guess. Let me know if you liked my interpretation of Caine's character. If you have a different take, let me know in the comments. I'd love to read other people's takes, as long as they're respectful about sharing them. Be sure to like the video if you liked it. Maybe hype it if you have the means too. Subscribe and turn on notifications if you want to see more content from me. I mostly cover Dandy's World, but I have been looking to branch out a little recently. Although, I don't know how much of the Digital Circus I want to cover. There's probably better people out there that can provide character pieces than me, but if there's demand for it, I can try. Also, I opened a Discord server. Be sure to join it if you're interested in hanging out. I've been wanting to do more stuff to connect a bit more of my audience, but it's a little tough through comment sections, so I figured a Discord server would be a really cool idea. Link in the description. Go there now! And, as always, thanks for listening to me yap about the Digital Circus. Goodbye.